Okay, we are going to get started now. And once again, thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Mike. We will be going through the importance of June 15th this evening, what to do moving forward. We wanted to make sure that we put on this webinar about a week or so before June 15th so everyone can get prepared for it. For starters, again, my name is Mike. I'm a senior recruiting analyst here at SportsRecruits, meaning I work with people at SportsRecruits who are looking for that additional support in the recruiting process, whether that be specifically with videos, contacting college coaches, having a better understanding of NCAA rules and regulations. That is what I try to do for my families to make the process less stressful. My background, played college football at the Division III school called Mount Ida College, got my master's in school counseling from Long Island University, where I also was a graduate assistant there for a year, and also worked admissions for a few years. So really excited to go through this topic, one of the most important dates on the recruiting calendar. So we're really excited to give you guys all the information and answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thanks, Mike. My name's Emily. I'm the head of student athlete success over here at SportsRecruits. So I work with our customer success specialist team. So I work with the great people who, if you're emailing in to help at SportsRecruits, I'm assisting them, helping answer any questions you may have about your account, how to utilize SportsRecruits, or maybe even recruiting questions. And then I also manage the recruiting analyst team. So that's the team that Babbage is on, who's helping student athletes through the recruiting process and really providing personalized support. A little bit about my background. I played Division III basketball at a small liberal arts school called Franklin and Marshall College. During my time there, I worked in the athletic department and I worked with various different teams. Like Mike said, super excited to talk about this date tonight. It's a really exciting time for those who are entering their junior year. And then just a few logistical things. If you're attending tonight's webinar, or even if you registered, you're going to get a recording of this. So don't feel like you need to memorize everything Mike and I are telling you. You'll be able to see the recording, stop and replay things at your own time. And then any questions or comments, feel free to write them in the Q&A and chat section. We'll try to answer during tonight's presentation, but if not, we carved out some time at the end.
Yeah, that's perfect. So if anyone does have any questions, feel free to write them right in there whenever you have them. Chances are, I feel like a lot of people who have questions, we will be answering them throughout the presentation as well. But if there is something on your mind, feel free. But let's get into tonight's agenda. So I'm going to start us off tonight talking about what is the importance of June 15th, what athletes in particular are impacted by June 15th, and what you can expect as we get closer to that date and get past it next week. Emily will then take over and we'll talk about how to know where you stand with particular college coaches and the steps to take moving forward, and give you a bit of a background on how SportsRecruits can help if you are someone who has an active profile. Like Emily said, we also carve some time out for a Q&A at the end of tonight's call, and we will try and scatter those responses if they start rolling in shortly. So to get right into it, the importance of June 15th. It really depends on the sport that you play, but if you are in the class of 2024, June 15th is a very important date for you. This means June 15th entering after your sophomore year is the allowable date for college coaches to initiate or engage in recruiting related discussions with a specific group of sports, prospective student athletes. And that's just going to be in that specific group of sports, where for Division II, that's going to be the case for all sports across the board. We're going to get into what sports are affected at the Division I level, but to give some additional information on that, recruiting related discussions means, for those of you who've been contacting college coaches and getting the same responses over and over again with links to recruiting questionnaires and getting asked to fill out invite registrants for prospect camps and things of that nature. Now those conversations can start to open up a bit more. Coaches can be a bit more direct in what they think of you as a potential student athlete. They can start setting up phone calls with you. So this is going to be the really exciting part for a lot of people on this call who are in the class of 2024. You can really start getting a better idea from these D1 and D2 schools what type of interest these college coaches have in you. Now we're going to get into who is impacted in particular on June 15th, again, from a Division I and Division II standpoint. For the Division I level, every sport is going to be at the D1 level except football, softball, baseball, women's basketball, men's lacrosse, and women's lacrosse. For all of those sports that I just mentioned, the date for that for the Division I level is going to be September 1st, where those recruiting discussions can begin. If there is any men's ice hockey athletes on this call in the class of 2024, your recruiting specific date actually started back on January 1st, meaning those conversations have already been able to begin. But for those of you who do have that Division I interest and you play on any of these sports that are listed on the screen here, September 1st is likely going to be the date that you have to wait for that particular type of contact unless you're a men's ice hockey player. And again, if you're in the class of 2024, all NCAA Division II sports are opening up for this June 15th date as well. So you may have some Division I schools on your list. You may have some D2 schools on your list. Just make sure you take the time to look at this information. And likely a lot of you who have been contacting college coaches at this point, you probably have been receiving some sort of feedback from coaches letting you know we can start these discussions further on June 15th or September 1st, depending on the date and depending on the sport that you play as well. Also like to show this slide during this presentation as well, because it gets into a little bit more of what type of specific contact you can have based on the sport that you can play. So you can see the correspondence and private messages is really what we were discussing prior in the previous slides before. There might be some different dates for unofficial visits and specific telephone calls and things of that nature. And like Emily said, don't think you need to write this down right away. If you feel like you would like to take a screenshot of it, be my guest, but also this recording of this webinar is automatically going to become available to you at some point tomorrow. So you'd be more than welcome to go and grab this particular slide at that point as well. Next up for me, what to expect once we get to that date on June 15th. And once again, D1 and D2 coaches, depending on those sports that we just outlined, they are now going to be able to contact you via email, phone call, and text message outside of that type of communication you've had up to this point. They can talk to you about the recruiting process. They are able to set up official and unofficial visits. And depending on the conference, D1 and D2 coaches might even be able to offer you a spot in their 2024 recruiting class. One thing to note, since you are going to be listed as a rising junior or going into your junior year, depending on that particular date, understand that any offer that you receive during your junior year would be considered a verbal commitment. The difference between a verbal commitment and an official commitment is different in a sense of you're not going to be signing anything and you're simply just having a verbal agreement with that coaching staff that if all goes as planned, that is going to be the school that you are eventually going to attend. But that's the really exciting part, is that once June 15th hits, if you are very high on some of these college coaches list, they are going to be able to be a lot more direct in what they think of you as a potential student athlete and start having those conversations to see if you are someone who might be worth getting some sort of roster spot or getting some sort of offer in the near future.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of people think with this date that a coach is going to call you and right on the phone, they're going to offer you a spot. That may happen for some of the top recruits, but it's really just going to be a time, like Mike was saying, to just have more in-depth conversations, maybe asking you questions, say I'm a school reaching out, where do I stand on your list? What are the other schools that are on the top of your list? Maybe asking you to come to a prospect day. So don't panic if you don't get a call on that June 15th date, or you don't get an offer on that date. It's usually takes some time. Coaches want to meet you in person. They want to meet your family, your parents, or your guardians, and get to know you a little better.
Yeah, it's a great point. And also with that, I work with a lot of athletes who use SportsRecruits, and there's a lot of 2023 athletes where they're getting feedback from college coaches saying this, they're still going to take this summer for the 2023 class. So again, if you don't get that immediate feedback, do not panic. It doesn't mean that you're not someone that's being considered at this point. It really just depends on that timeline for coaches. I still believe COVID is playing a role in that overall timeline for how college coaches are going about the recruiting process. So this is strictly what is going to be allowed by those college coaches, not necessarily how all of them are going to start dealing with the class of 2024. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah. And Mike, I think you have a great point too, in the sense of COVID. A lot of people are taking extra years. Definitely. Maybe they didn't take their extra year of eligibility last year, but they're doing it this year. So I feel as, the years have passed with this date, it's not as much as you're going to get a call and you're going to commit. It's more of let's talk more. Let's learn more about each other on both ends.
Yeah, 100%. And then take it away.
Yeah. So with that being said, June 15th comes, and also too, I just saw this. I was just about to bring this up. Great question. D3, there are little to no recruiting rules. You can have conversations starting in 8th grade if you wanted to with a Division III coach. In terms of timing, and it really depends on that program and how popular they are, what division and the coaching staff, what Division III coaches probably do is they wait till after that June 15th date, or that September 1st, again, depending on your sport, seeing which student athletes are committing to Division I or Division II, and then having conversations. So usually the Division III process happens a little later compared to Division I or Division II. However, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be speaking with them now. You should always be communicating with the schools you're interested in. But yeah, little to no rules with Division III. You can communicate at any time.
It's also the same scenario for anyone who's interested in NAIA schools or junior college schools as well. Similar situation where there's not as many regulations. So that communication can start earlier, but it just typically ends up being a little bit later on.
Totally. Great point. So June 15th comes, it goes. What are some things that you and your family can be asking yourself to really know where you stand? Did you get a call? Did you get a personalized message, right? Maybe, you got an email that day. Hey, Mike, we're super excited. That we've been speaking with you. We'd love to have you come to this camp that we're hosting on July 15th. Or maybe you did get a call, or maybe your club or high school coach got a call. Did a college coach reach out to your club or high school coach? I'm jumping ahead of myself. Have you talked to your athletic advocates about your target list? So keep in mind, and I feel like Mike did a good job of this, communication really varies on sport, but also on division. Some people could be really busy right now. Maybe, again, they're not reaching out to you on that June 15th date, but these are good questions to be asking yourself to really figure out if a school is super, super interested in you. Did you get that call? Did you get that personalized message? Are they contacting your athletic advocates? And then finally, I think this is really important. Whether you're a 2024 or whether you're a 2025, talk to your athletic advocates about your list. Let your club, high school, maybe you have an athletic trainer, let them know about your list, because then maybe they can reach out to the staff for you, seeing where they are in their process and if they're looking for your position. So definitely be asking yourself these questions. It doesn't need to be the day after, but maybe a few weeks after, for you to really figure out if you're on that coach's list. So what are things that you should be doing after June 15th and really beyond? So first thing we have here is a feet to fire email. So if you're sitting here and you're like, Emily, I've been super great about communicating with college coaches. I've introduced myself. I've sent them updates. Like, I'm really excited for June 15th because I've been communicating with them for the past year and a half, which is great. That's what everyone should be doing. But let's say June 15th comes, it goes, and you don't get a call or a personalized message. First of all, don't panic. Coaches are really busy. It doesn't mean they're not interested. What we suggest student athletes to do is send something called a feet to fire message. So what this is you're reaching out to that coach. Hey, Coach Babich, I'm super excited about Duke, and I'm really interested in your program. I'm sure, you've been thinking about your 2024 recruiting class. And I'd love to know if you're still looking for a setter. I'd love to set up a call to learn about your program and where I stand. Let me know a few good times next week that could work for you. Give them a time period of when you want to get on a call, so that it kind of pushes them to answer more, because you're giving a specific date. And this way, maybe they don't answer, maybe they do. Hey, Mike, we've actually filled up our recruiting class, but, we wish you the best of luck. Or, hey, we just started. We'd love to see more video from you. Hey, just started. Would love to see you at a camp. But sending that message will be really great for you to really figure out where you stand if you didn't get a call or if you didn't get a personalized message. Now, what's important is you shouldn't send what we're calling a feet to fire message if you've never had any communication with the coach before. So let's just say you're sitting here and you're like, okay, I haven't sent any messages, which is okay. Send some introduction messages before that June 15th date. Introduce yourself. Let the coach know who you are and why you're interested in their school. And then maybe, continue to update them throughout the summer and send that feed to fire message later. And that really goes to that next bullet point there. Communicate with college coaches. something you should be always doing throughout your recruiting process, whether it be at the beginning or at the tail end. You should be updating them with events, highlight reels. I'm sure everyone's getting their transcripts soon with the school year ending. Maybe you took some SAT or ACTs, you have some test scores. The summer is a really great time to be communicating with coaches, especially around events, so they'll be able to see you play live. And then finally, set up calls with coaches to learn more about their program, and learn where they are in your recruiting class. Other things that you should be doing is maybe a few weeks go by, a month go by, you've had no communication from the schools on your list, haven't got a call. Again, don't panic. It's totally okay. But take a look at your list. Maybe you should be adding some more safeties or fits on there. Expand your list a little wider. Again, showing it to your athletic advocate to get a second voice with that, but expanding it so then maybe you can get some more touch points from college coaches. And then finally, I've said this a bunch, but definitely don't panic. This is just the beginning of direct communication, and you never know what can happen. And something Mike and I always tell the families that we work with is, never take yourself out of the running with the school. There could be 1,000,001 reasons why they don't respond. Let's say you send 15 messages and you get no response. It's probably time to throw up the white flag, but let that coach tell you, hey, we filled up our class, or, we just don't think you're a right fit. Never assume that there's no interest there.
Yeah. And also with that too, if you don't get responses, if you're someone who is just starting that communication now, don't take it personal if you don't get that reaction right away. Like Emily said before, college coaches are extremely busy this time of year. They're probably making their way to tournaments and events and showcases and hosting their own prospect camps. So if that immediate reaction doesn't happen, it's okay. So especially if you are someone who is contacting someone like those top tier schools at the Division I level, it may take 4 or 5 contacts before you even get that reaction. So like Emily said, don't give up on those schools until you've really done your due diligence and taken the time to really make sure that they're aware of who you are.
Yeah, like those top schools receive maybe 100 emails a week. So yeah, or maybe even more. Like keep emailing, keep updating them. And yeah, you'll be in a good spot. Great. So moving forward after June 15th, what are some things that SportsRecruits can do to help you really make that process easier? I think a big thing that I've already spoken about is just reevaluating your list and expanding that. So here at SportsRecruits, we really talk about that it's important to have a holistic fit, and not just think about your athletics with your college experience. So we've kind of broke that up into 5 different categories. You need to have the academic fit, the athletic fit, the geographic fit, the social fit, and finally the financial fit. If you can check 4 out of 5 of these, you've probably found the right fit for you. So academically, some things that you should be asking yourself when you're looking at a school is, does it have classes I'm interested in, majors I want to study? And, you guys are just finishing your sophomore year. You may be like, Emily, I have no idea what I want to study, and that's totally fine. Take a look at their classes. Is there something you can see yourself studying at that school? Is a question you should ask yourself. Athletics. Do I want to play at a Division I, Division II, Division III school? Taking it a step further, do I want to play at a program where I'm going to start freshman year? Or am I okay playing at a program where I may not be able to see the field or court junior to senior year? Geographic fit. Do I want to be close to home? Is it important for my friends, family, to be able to come see my games or matches? Or am I okay jumping on a plane ride and going across the country? Socially, size of the school. Do you want to be involved in clubs? Do you want to study abroad? And then finally, financially, which is different for every family and something that really, you should start to look at when you really start to narrow down that list. But definitely be considering all of these things once you start to build out that list. And again, you should always be casting a wide net, aiming for anywhere from 20 to 30 schools. Having a good amount of reach, fit, and safety. And keep in mind, this process is fluid. You may have some schools on your list now that you won't have in a few weeks. They may come back on, and that's totally fine for it to be constantly changing.
Definitely. And you mentioned with the financial side of things, that's going to affect everyone differently. But for some people, the athletic side or the academic side may be the most important factor, where for someone else, it might be the geographic or having that opportunity to study abroad. So understand that if you're talking to a friend who's in the same grad year and they're looking at similar schools, just or even different schools, just understand that what you value the most may be different compared to someone else who's in a similar situation.
Totally. Great. And with the Sports Recruit search tool, it makes it super easy to find schools with all of that criteria I just talked about. You can look by location, academics, you can go to major, size of the school, and then you can look by athletics as well. Is there a certain division or is there a certain conference that you're interested in looking at? Keep in mind too, the school search tool is based on your gender and your sport. So, if they don't have a women's volleyball program at that school, they will not appear in the school search. Messaging system. So I spoke about this a ton and I will speak about it till I'm blue in the face. Communication is so important. And it's okay. I've seen some email, chat and questions come in. If you haven't started, that's fine. Start before June 15th. You have a week, introduce yourself, let them know who you are. Better now than continuing to wait. With the messaging system, if you do have a pro account, you have access to this. So it makes it super easy to reach out to schools on your list. All you need to do is type in the name of the school and a drop down appears with the college coaches' names. You simply click on those names and it automatically embeds the email for you, saving you a ton of time and a ton of energy from pulling that yourself. Some tips here: email the full coaching staff. It's better to get on more computer screens and really get your name out there. And then finally, whenever you send a message, there's a link that's embedded at the end. This link is automatically there. There's no need to copy and paste it. And what's important about that is when a college coach clicks that, they get taken directly to your profile and you get notified all in real time who's coming to your profile, watching your video, or opening up your transcript. So some reasons to reach out to coaches, and we kind of went through these, but definitely important to go through it again. Introduction, letting them know who you are, why you're interested in their school, and sharing any information that you believe would be important for them to know. And then two, when letting them know why you're interested in their school, try to make that a little more personalized. College coaches know when they're receiving blast messages and you're just copy and pasting. Doesn't need to be a long paragraph. It can be 1 or 2 sentences of what you enjoy about that school or program. With the summer coming up, I know a ton of you are probably attending showcases, tournaments, camps, clinics, prospect days. It does not make sense to attend an event if coaches do not know you are there. Make sure to be sending your schedule. If you're going to a camp or clinic, emailing them a few days before and letting them know you're excited. If you go to a camp or clinic, sending a thank you afterwards, maybe even referencing something you learned from them or learned about the program. Again, that personalization is going to go a long way. And then throughout your process, really any updates, whether that be academically or athletically. We talked about transcript, SAT scores, ACT scores, video. Video is so important. Coaches need to see video really to know if they want to move further with you. So definitely if you have any new highlight reels from the summer, any skills videos, getting that up on your profile for coaches to see. Student athletes with video are 19 times more likely to receive a view. So definitely get video up there if you don't already, especially before June 15th. And then other reasons, setting up a phone call or setting up to visit. With this June 15th date, they will be able to really coordinate with you and get on the phone. And then again, that feed to fire email, make sure you are only sending that if you've had prior contact with that coaching staff.
Yeah. Well, one quick note too, if anyone is planning on visiting college campuses and maybe you've set yourself up for a campus tour or you're just going to see it for yourself, feel free to let a college coach know, excuse me, if it's after June 15th, that you are going to be on campus, and you see if they have 5 minutes so you can go into the office and introduce yourself and see if that's available too. That's also another opportunity. So maybe you're not necessarily scheduling an official or unofficial visit, but that might be a great way for you to also get into the mind of these college coaches as well.
Yeah, and this is the activity I was referencing before. So knowing who's coming to your profile, watching your video, or opening up your transcript provides, a lot of transparency in your process. Great. So we have a ton of questions coming in. So definitely want to have some time to answer those. But just a quick recap. What is the importance of June 15th? It's a contact period in the NCAA. Depending on your sport, it could be for Division I or Division II. And then for all sports, it is Division II. Coaches can have those recruiting-like conversations. Not going to go through who is impacted. It's every sport for Division I besides softball, baseball, men's and women's lacrosse, men's ice hockey, and women's basketball.
And football as well.
And football. Okay. I knew I was missing one. Thank you. And then what to expect on that date. Maybe you'll get an email, maybe you'll get a phone call, maybe they'll be reaching out to your club or high school coach. If they don't, do not panic. Coaches are busy. Like Mike said before, he's been seeing that coaches are still finishing up their 2023 recruiting class. It really depends on your sport, depends on the program, and it depends on the division. Things you should be doing is continuing your communication, send that feet to fire message only if you've had prior communication to really set up a call and see where they are in their process. And then be utilizing SportsRecruits. All of you, if not, have a free or paid profile or pro profile, The school search comes with any profile, free or pro, and the messaging systems comes with the pro. Definitely take advantage of those features and be using that throughout your process.
Yeah, that's perfect. And like Emily said, we do have a good amount of questions in here, so we're going to try and get through as many as possible with the time that we have left here. So I'm going to open them up and we'll see. It looks like there's a few repeats in here as well, so we'll see what we can do.
Here's one that I saw earlier. Should I be worried about over messaging a coach? Can you be too aggressive about your communication? This is a great answer. We get a question a lot, how frequently should I be emailing? Is it once a month? Is it every other week? Unfortunately, we don't have that answer, but if you have an update for them academically or athletically, or you have events, you should be messaging them, and it's not overly aggressive. Coaches want to hear these things. Coaches want to know where you are this summer. I mean, you shouldn't be emailing them every other day. But if you so happen to have something that comes up every 2 weeks, that is totally fine.
Yeah, definitely. I saw one come in here with someone was basically asking, is there such a thing as too many videos on a SportsRecruits profile? And I think there is, and it really comes down to what type of videos you have more than anything else. If you have a lot of individual clips that are 10 to 15 seconds long, and you're asking that coach to watch 15 to 25 different 10 to 15 second clips, make it easier for them. Combine those clips into one overall video. So now it's something that a coach can watch for 3 to 4 minutes, and it's just one click of a button, and they can get a pretty good idea on what type of athlete that you are, especially if it's in-game clips. Other than that, it could be a bit overwhelming if you have 30 or 40 videos available for a college coach to see. But one feature that definitely you should utilize as well is the featured video. If there's one particular video on SportsRecruits that you want a college coach to take a look at, make sure you have that noted as featured, and that's going to make it really easy for that coach to identify which one they should watch first.
Totally. Someone asked, are there any specific recruiting rules for women's golf? Women's golf pertains to the rules that we talked about tonight. So June 15th, Division I and Division II coaches can start having recruiting-like conversations.
Yeah. To follow up that, someone asked, are there any specifics that coaches look for academically that you should let them know about? Really going to come down to what the academic requirements are of that particular school that you're looking at. If the school is sincerely interested in you, they may offer you something known as an academic pre-read, meaning they would ask for your transcripts, ask if you've taken the SAT or ACT, if that's something that they require. So then those coaches would then be able to give you a heads up on if you're someone who would be deemed acceptable for the school, or even if you might be able to be eligible for a merit scholarship, which would be based off academics. So that absolutely is something that really is going to be very specific to the school that you're contacting.
It's a good question. When you get a notice that a college coach viewed your profile, should you respond that you have acknowledged them viewing your profile? We do not encourage student athletes to do that. Just because, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's like, think of it if you viewed someone's Instagram and they messaged you and they said, hey, you just viewed my Instagram, thanks. It's kind of just a little like creepy in a sense. Invasive. Yeah, that's the right word. Invasive. So I think it's saying something that they viewed it, but there's no need to acknowledge it. We can take maybe a few more. Is it possible to get recruited later in your junior year, for example, at the end of your junior year? Totally. Just continue your communication, ask where they are in your process. It just depends on the program. Sometimes people drop from their recruiting class. You never know what can happen. So that can happen. It can happen your senior fall. Just continue your communication.
Yeah. Another question that popped in here. How important is it to take the ACT or SAT prior to June 15th or September 1st? I wouldn't be as concerned as making sure you have that exam completed. I would think just from a general standpoint, a lot of people take the SAT or ACT for the first time during their junior year at some point. Some people wait until their senior year as well. Ultimately, if the school does require an SAT or ACT exam, just make sure that you have it completed prior to filling out that application. And also remember, if you take it more than once, you could typically send over that super score, meaning you can get the best math and the best English and combine those if you took it multiple times. But if you're a sophomore and you're worried that you don't have the SAT or ACT completed at this point, I wouldn't panic unless you got specific instructions from the school to have it completed prior to that.
Totally. Another good question, how do you know, I'm paraphrasing this, but that some IDs are money makers? So there's a few questions you should be asking yourself. Is this school on the top of your list? Have you had any communication with them? Is it realistic for you to play there? If the answer is all yes, you should be going. But if you've never spoken to a coach before and you're just getting an email, that's a money grab. It also just doesn't make sense for you to go, especially if you're not interested in that school.
I had someone write in asking us to discuss the NCAA eligibility number. We just don't have time to go through it in its entirety. So what I did just do is add a link to our blog post that gives you all the information you need to know about the NCAA eligibility number, as well as a link that would take you to the NCAA website where you'd be able to register and receive that number as well. And if you are someone who is a class of 2024, the NCAA recommends the end of your sophomore, start of your junior year is a good time to do that if you are interested in competing at the D1 or D2 level.
Great. I think there's one more question that I think would be helpful for like 2025s or 2024s on this call.
Sure.
If I'm in the class of 2025, what sort of email is most important to send? Right now, it's introduction. Make sure your profile is fully filled out. Let them know who you are and why you're interested in this school, and then continue to message them throughout the summer, letting them know where you are.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think that is all the time that we have this evening, guys. And again, thank you so much for your feedback and for your questions. It's really helpful for us to know what you're looking to get additional information about, and especially because this is such an important topic, an important date on the recruiting calendar. But once again, we really appreciate everyone joining us here tonight. If you have any topics or any specific situations that you would like us to address in future webinars, feel free to contact help@sportsrecruits.com. Let us know if there is any specific area you'd like us to focus on. And again, a recording of this webinar, if you're registered or if you attended, is automatically going to be sent to you at some point tomorrow. So if you want to share this with friends, if you want to watch it back and look at some of those graphics, all of that will be available to you tomorrow.
Yeah, best of luck for June 15th, week away.
Good luck, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye, guys.